What's up guys, I'm in Baku today in Azerbaijan, 2 weeks ahead of the Grand Prix being here, and because of the success of that video I did in Monaco where the same sort of thing happened, I was there as they were building the circuit and I went for a run. I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to try and do a complete lap of the Baku city centre circuit. It's about 6k. I'm going to try and take you with me and talk you through the lap on the way. Thank you.
Right, so this is a very different circuit to that of Monaco. It's about 6 kilometres in length. We are a lot closer to the race weekend than I was when I was in doing the Monaco lap. So a lot more advanced in terms of their preparations. You can already see that grandstands and the pit buildings over there, a lot more advanced. But I think it's a really interesting lap, this one, so let's get on with it. So this is turn one, which comes at the end of that incredibly long straight. And if we just look back, you can't even see the end of it because it's so far away. So maximum speed along here before a really big braking zone and then turning into this corner that really tightens up on the exit, and that barrier just across there has caught a number of people out. Somehow I've got to get across this road. The first sector of this track is all about 90-degree corners. So this section, quite narrow, but this is a DRS zone along here. The detection point was just before that 90-degree bend, and then it's activated along here, where teams will be able to go flat out, open the rear wing, and try and get an overtake done before the end of this straight. Right now, this part of the circuit is a nice relaxing part with families enjoying football and all sorts of stuff. But you can imagine the noise when you get 20 modern Formula One cars screaming through here with a sound reverberating off the buildings either side. Suddenly becomes a very different place. So here's the next of those 90-degree turns. You can see how wide these streets are and how they lend themselves much more so to a racetrack than lots of the street circuits that we know from the world of motorsport. This place is perfect for a street racing event. Right, turn 5 then. Massive braking zone here. You've got to get out as wide as you can, out towards this concrete barrier here without touching it, and then turning in, clipping the apex, but then very quickly setting yourself up for turn 6 over there. This is one of those slightly unique parts where cars are flat out down this side in one direction, but just across the central reservation, they're flat out coming the other way. Turn 7 takes us out of sector 1 into sector 2, and this is where things get really, really tight. From the nice, wide, spacious streets, we go into the old part of town, which is stunningly beautiful, but very narrow. Right, this is the bit that everyone knows then. The bit that's in all the pictures. This incredibly old, ancient even, part of the castle walls. And it comes to this absolute bottleneck in the circuit, where this bit here, just between this barrier and that barrier there, is tiny. Five paces across. There you go, that's how narrow it is. Just enough space for a full-size coach to get through. Definitely not enough space for 2 Formula One cars through there. It's really interesting actually, this bit of the circuit here is actually underneath this tarmac all ancient cobbles running all the way down here. And when Formula One came to town, when we had the first race here, They tarmacked over all of that. They laid a protective sheet down of plastic over the ancient cobbles and then tarmacked over the top so that F1 cars could run over them. And when they want to take the tarmac back up again, they chip it off, lift up the plastic covering, and the beautiful cobbles are back. It's a real incline as well. I don't know how much you can see it on the camera, but that is a very steep climb up this hill. So in a Formula 1 car, flat out, a short burst of flat out power to get up the hill, but it really is single file through this whole section here. Grandstands will of course be full on the day, and this is a great spot to watch from because people make mistakes. The circuit goes up and down. At this corner here, the circuit's falling away from you as you're trying to brake and turn into this corner, and then immediately you're back on the power going back up this steep hill again. This bit here is actually classed as turn 13. In a Formula 1 car, it's just flat out. It's a kink in the road, really. But I promise you, the incline getting up from turn 12 up to turn 13 is way bigger than it looks on telly. I'm sure a Formula 1 car makes light work of it, but on foot, bit of a challenge. See if we can get into this marshal's post to have a look at turn 16. There you go, that's quite a good view of turn 15 that is, which is a left-hander, but just look how the circuit falls away to the inside. If you catch the apex right, it's almost like a banked corner with the inside falling away, but if you run wide on that corner, the circuit falls in the opposite direction, which means you'll end up with less grip and end up sliding right over towards this barrier here. So it's quite a tricky corner to get right, that one, and the steep run down this hill is way more extreme than it looks. This is going to be an absolute dream for a Formula 1 driver, getting flat out on the power and letting gravity take hold as well, blasting down there towards turn 16 and sector 3. Get a good impression of how steep that incline is and that run down here. This is where sector 3 starts, and this sector 3 is basically from this corner here, turn 16, flat out for most of this last sector. Really high speed stuff. This is the sector that's going to really reward the teams with the strongest power unit. Right, now on foot, this is a particularly tricky part of the circuit to negotiate, so I might have to somehow get the other side of this barrier and go down the underpass. Bear with me. Right, so to give you some context, down there is where I just ran down that hill. Turn 16 will form to come through here. The barriers are not up yet, we'll come this side of the roundabout through here. Quite a tight, almost a right angle corner, and then it's hard on the throttle pretty much for the whole way up the start finish straight, past the pit lane on your left hand side, flat out the entire way from here on in. Really tough on power units, this one. This is turn 17, but it's just a kink really. The Formula 1 cars don't even notice it. And just look how wide the road is. 5 lanes wide, 6 lanes wide along here. What's the protocol here when you're running? Do you overtake a horse or do you stay behind him? I don't want to spook him by running past him too closely. There we go. Successful overtake, didn't even need DRS. So this is obviously the other DRS zone along here. Activation, or detection point rather, is somewhere around here. And then it's activated down towards the latter part. The FIA can control the length of that zone before the event. They can decide how long they want it to be, and as we've seen at some other circuits, whether they want to add another zone in completely. I think difficult to put a third DRS zone at this track, but they can alter the length if they feel like it's necessary. It feels to me like this straight is so long that you probably don't even need DRS, or definitely don't need it as much, because the drafting has such a powerful effect if you can get behind somebody. It just seems to go on forever, this straight, especially when you're on foot. Still going. So, behind me right there is the beginning of the Pitlane Entry, and you can just imagine at the speed you're approaching that, it's a real challenge to get the car slowed down by the time you get all the way up there, which is the actual turning point into the pit lane. Then you hit that pit lane speed limit line, you've got to be on it to get the car slowed down. You are doing well over 200 miles an hour by the time you reach that point if you've got to decide whether you're going to come into the pit lane or not. The speeds are astronomical. For an F1 driver, things like these buildings, the trees, these bridges are just whizzing past in a kind of a blur. It's a long way. The longest flat out section of any Formula 1 track we go to. Right, let's carry on. I don't know if we can get into the pit lane. This little square in here forms part of the paddock, I guess, and that building there, the Hilton Hotel, which is where lots of the drivers and teams stay, actually forms the media centre as well. Right, let's have a look inside the pit lane. All these concrete blocks here are awaiting to be laid out to form the remaining parts of the circuit that have to be left open until the last minute to allow traffic to flow. And here's the pit lane. Okay, that guy's giving us the crossed arm, so we can't go into the pit lane, but you can see the garages down there being constructed. That's all temporary buildings with paddock club space above. Behind there will be the paddock where the teams will have their kind of hospitality units. The TV compound will be over in that side over there. So the place just transforms from what is actually a really beautiful city, a really busy city, into a racetrack. And of all the city centres, of all the street tracks that we've ever been to in Formula E or Formula 1 or anything else, I've got to say I think this one suits racing best, because at large parts of this circuit it's wider than many of the permanent racetracks that we visit. It's got some great corners, it's got that incredible straight that just allows for all sorts of overtaking, and I think it has a little bit of a mix of everything that just spices up and brings some great racing to Baku. It does feel like, unlike Monaco, I guess, where the inhabitants of Monaco, the people of Monaco, I would say take precedence, and therefore disruption is kept to an absolute minimum until the last moment. It kind of feels like here, the city of Baku is all about Formula 1. It's all about bringing this event to this city to highlight Baku on the world map, to bring tourism into the area. And therefore the disruption is quite extreme, and the people of Baku probably, I suspect there's mixed opinions about how good an event this is for them. The taxi driver last night was telling me how much he hates it because the disruption it causes for him is just agonising for weeks. Anyway, I hope you appreciate that I have risked my life today on the streets of this city to bring you a lap of the circuit. I'm losing my voice because running and talking and the pollution here is quite bad. So I hope you appreciate that, but I hope that's given a nice little insight into one of my favourite circuits on the F1 calendar, and I never would have thought I'd have been saying that about a Baku city centre street track. See you later.